mothersraisingsons.com. I am Scot Conway, Ph.D., J.D., whole crazy resume. And I'm talking about part of the problem of being a mother, and particularly being a mother raising a son today. Guilt is probably the dominant emotion that most mothers feel. Now, they, of course, are motivated by love. They kind of live in this state of love, and that's what drives, oddly enough, often the guilt, is because they love their children so much that they want to basically be the perfect mom. But, of course, there is no such thing as the perfect mom, and even if you were the perfect mom, if whatever idea you have in your head of the perfect mother you actually did, somebody somewhere is going to still think you're messing up. So there is no single perfect mother. There can be many great moms, good moms, wise moms, insightful moms, and of course the world is filled with mothers doing the best with what they know and doing the best with what they have. But so many women live in this perpetual state of guilt. And part of that seems to be something that women all over the world absorb, that they have to be perfect at whatever role they have. And they can be very critical of themselves. Now, the reason I say all over the world is a colleague of mine was doing a presentation in India. Now, India isn't the United States of America. There's a somewhat different culture there. And whether he's been in America or in Europe, whether he's in India or elsewhere in Asia, one of the things he's found consistently around the world is the amount of guilt that women feel. So this is common. So if you feel guilt about your parenting, if you feel guilt about your job, if you feel guilt about your body, if there's places in your life where you just feel bad because you're not doing as well as you think you should do, you've got probably about half of the global population as company. But what can you do about this, especially if you're a single mom? Now, as far as single moms go, sometimes they feel guilty because they're not as good at their job as they want to be. They're not as good at being a mom as they want to be. They don't keep their house as good as they want to be. Maybe they're not in the kind of physical shape that they want to be in. Because there's too much. There really is too much. And fortunately, there are solutions to a lot of this. Now, this lesson isn't about guilt itself and how you deal with guilt and how you alleviate guilt and what you do about these feelings, especially the legitimate part of these feelings that is telling you something must change. Because very often you don't know what to change. And honestly, sometimes what needs to change is your perspective on the whole thing. And sometimes what really does need to change is how you go about something. So if a mother's raising sons, something a lot of mothers have experienced, and even those of us who might not be mothers have observed, and I have about a quarter century right now of working with kids and coaching the parents, is this quote that I ran across, is, behind every great kid is a mother who's pretty sure she's screwing it up. So the kid can be doing great, but the mother feels like she should be doing better. In fact, what's interesting is even when the kid's doing great, you think there's a certain amount of satisfaction, the kid brings home good grades, he's polite, he has good friends, is sometimes even when you have a high-performing child in all the ways you would expect a child to perform, the mother then feels like, oh, you know, my child is so smart, my child is so talented, my child is so capable, he needs a better mother than me, I need to be better. And so it almost really doesn't matter how good the child is doing and how good the child is. Mothers very often have this feeling of, I'm afraid I'm messing it up. I'm afraid I might be messing up my child. I'm afraid I might not be serving my child's best long-term interests. And this is because of the way so many mothers so deeply and even almost desperately love their children. And especially when you have mothers who are raising children mostly by themselves. Whether they still have a husband, if the husband is primarily a provider, and he isn't really participating actively in the parenting of the children, and so she's basically doing most of the parenting by herself, sometimes even all of the parenting by herself, and from time to time, a certain percentage of mothers end up having to do all the parenting almost in opposition to the dad. So behind a lot of kids is a mother who's pretty sure she's already blown it. And I run into this a lot too. Because one of the truths of children is that you have until about the age of 7 for them to just sort of almost magically absorb everything. And there's a lot of mothers I've talked to who have become acutely aware of the fact that what their child's life was like from 0 to 7 was somewhat less than ideal. Even dramatically less than ideal. That what they saw in an example of what it means to be a man was dramatically less than ideal. What they saw in what it means to be a woman was dramatically less than ideal. What a marriage is like, what relationships are like, what friendships are like, has all been dramatically less than ideal. And some of these women have been afraid and felt guilty that they can't ever go back and get those imprint years back, and that she just feels lucky if she can just get her kid to adulthood in one piece. If she can manage to not have anything really, really bad happen, and that her child can become an adult and kind of be okay, that at this point that might be the best she can do. Single moms. Now this is rough on single moms. Single moms are inundated all the time with all kinds of statistics of what it's like growing up without a father in the house, and all these fatherlessness statistics about how much more prone children are to suicide, and how boys especially are more prone to suicide if there's no father in the house, and the list is endless. I was just looking at a list of all those things last night as I was pondering you. I know that single mothers get bombarded with these kind of things, usually one at a time, occasionally all at once, and I was just glancing down the list and just saying, how does a single mom put up with that? Well, it might not be her choice. I was just talking with a single mom recently, and her frustration was that she thought that they had it together. But when the second child came, all of a sudden her husband said, this whole dad thing, this just really isn't for me. And he left. And she doesn't even know where he is. That they got divorced, he's not paying any support. She doesn't even know where he is anymore. And what's she going to do? And people keep telling, well, you need to have a man in the house. The boys need a father. The girl needs a father. And she just shrugged and said, well, how am I supposed to do something about that? Mothers with co-parents that undermine the parenting, that undermine everything that they're trying to teach the kids. Sometimes these mothers who might have to co-parent with an ex, and I have a mother that I have to deal with whose ex undermines her authority, actively undermines her authority. Oh, your mom's just crazy. You don't have to listen to her. She's just out of her mind. Oh, school's not all that important. No, you guys don't have to go. Homework here. Play video games. Have a good time. You're only a kid once. And meanwhile, mom's trying to teach them responsibility and maturity, and that you need to get your homework done, and you got to get your work done before you have play, and that it's okay sometimes to play before you get your work done, but the work has got to be done. And competing with the world of play and the world of responsibility is sometimes a desperate uphill battle. And occasionally, she just kind of wishes she was a single parent. That she really kind of wishes that the other one wasn't even there, and that at least as a single mom with sole custody, with the man just gone, at least she wouldn't have to be constantly fighting against this other point of view, that none of these responsibilities are important, and that what masculinity is all about is you don't have to listen to anybody, and you certainly don't have to listen to any woman. And mom's just crazy. A lot of moms just hope that their boy, especially, doesn't turn out to be much like their dad. And to be perfectly honest, there are also some dads that kind of hope that their boy doesn't turn out to be much like them. Where they begin to realize sometimes, maybe it would be better if my boy didn't drink the way I drink, or smoke the way I smoke, or treat people the way I treat people. I've managed to destroy a marriage, or 2 marriages, or 3 marriages, You know, I got a lot of people that don't like me, or, you know, I've gotten sick from the things that I've done, or I've gotten cancer from this, or just I know that it's bad. You know, it's addictive, it's whatever it is. And even some men, if you catch them in the most sober moments, they really realize, I don't want my child to do what I'm doing. That in fact, if my child wasn't copying me, I certainly would not coach my child to copy me. Now what's interesting is, where I've run into men like this the most has actually been in jail. Where they don't want their kids to land in jail. They want their kids to be good kids. They don't want their kids to be the bad guy. Even the men, interestingly enough, who might plead their innocence in and of themselves, if you talk to them, if they have kids, and say, okay, so whatever it was you did, if your son wasn't doing it yet, you would coach him to do whatever it was you did that got you here. So, no. All of a sudden then, he shifts from justification to, no, I don't want my son to copy it, which tells you that he really realizes it's not good. But very often we end up with mothers who are raising these boys. And one of the challenges being a mom raising a son is she was never a boy. She's not a boy. She's not a man. She might have some idea what she wishes men in her life were, what she wishes maybe the kid's father was, what she wishes she maybe could find romantically, or how she wishes people behave toward her at work, and kind of all these vague notions, kind of this hodgepodge mosaic that she can kind of sort of put together. But ultimately she realizes, at least, you know, the wise women realize that the world of men, the experience of the masculine is different than the experience of the feminine. Some moms think that's a good thing. Some others have said, you know, boys are much easier. Not as much drama, you know, and the clothes and the makeup, and you know, I was talking to a dad recently saying, you know, I wasn't really ready to be a dad of a pretty girl. I was ready to handle the self-esteem issues of the ugly girl problems, but, you know, the pretty girl problems is scary to the dad. And so, you know, he's kind of grappling with that. And, you know, part of it is he recognizes, being a man, what the masculine side of dealing with the pretty girls is, and he kind of worries, okay, I've got this pretty daughter, and I know what boys her age are like when it comes to pretty girls. And how do I help her deal with all of that? Because I have an idea what that's like. But then as a mom, you're going, okay, I know the girl side of it. I've lived the girl side of it. I've been around it. I've seen it. My friends have been through it. But like this man side, this teenage boy side, that's different than the life that I have. Expectations of modern masculinity are frankly bewildering, because there's these conflicting messages that are going out to boys. Boys are growing up in a very different world than our generation grew up in. Certainly a very, very different world, almost a flipped backward world from what our grandparents grew up in. So if my grandfather was still alive, and my grandfather sat down to coach a bunch of elementary school boys on what it's like to be a boy, and you know, this is what boys do, and this is what you need to do to be a good boy, and these are all the things that are okay and that you just sort of expect from boys, and that wouldn't work in the modern society. A lot of what was once normal boy gets medicated now. So the whole ADD thing, which, you know, I have, I mean, my attention goes all over the place, and sometimes in 5 different places all at the same time. I've learned to use it as a tool. Because when I was growing up, part of the issue was, well, you have trouble paying attention just here. But what I was also told is, but you have this incredible gift of just grabbing all of this other stuff, because your attention goes all over the place, and you can just grab hold of these things and pull them all together. Imagine what you can do, and how fast your brain can work. Because you can only pay attention to this maybe half or a third or a quarter of the time other people can pay attention to, and you're still learning it. How fast do you have to be thinking to do that? You must be a genius. Put me in school today, they had me on Ritalin, or at least someone will be trying to put me on Ritalin. And then with the dyslexia, things flipping around, you're kind of growing up with this idea that, and I still live this today, is because of my dyslexia, because things flip on me, you kind of learn to read words in that first letter and last letter, and kind of what letters are kind of in between, which, sometimes you don't even see all of those, and to learn how to interpret what you're saying. But here's the value of the dyslexia for me, is learning, okay, if things flip around on me, that means I keep seeing things from a different perspective than other people do. Most people say, like, that's what it is. I see that's what it is, and kind of that's what it is, and that's what it is. And because I can do that, I got told that, well, you can be very creative, you can be really smart, you can analyze things and break them apart and see them in ways that nobody else can see them. Instead of, oh, you have dyslexia, you need therapy, here's your label. Oh, you have ADD, you need medication, here's your label. Instead, these were tools for me. What does someone like you need to do to accomplish what you need to accomplish, from who you are and where you're at and what your skills and deficiencies are? And then how can you exploit what's different about you to your advantage? That's what I learned from my mother raising this son. And my mother raising this son, by and large, without my father. He was around, he was the provider, but he was the provider 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, and we rarely saw him at home. A lot of what was once normal boy gets boys suspended from school, gets boys expelled from school, sometimes gets boys psychiatrically evaluated, and these are very concrete things. Some of those boys were getting the scraps. I remember being in school, and me and another boy, we just kind of got into it. He punched me, and I grabbed him, and it was a little bit of a scuffle. And the way it got handled is the teacher said, "Hey, cut it out." And guess what we did? We cut it out. There's no get in here. And guess what we did? We went in there. And the teacher stands there, arms folded, and says, "What are you two doing?" And all of a sudden, everything's fine between us because now we've got the teacher here. Nowadays, you'd be suspended for 3 days for something like that. Automatically, period. Even if you were the target of the bully. Even if I did nothing and the kid just slugged me for no reason and I never tried to grab him or stop him or anything, I would still get suspended for being involved in a fight. It's crazy. And expulsions. A kid recently got expelled from school for pointing a finger gun, and he's expelled. And of course, some of us have heard the story of the kid who ate a Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun, and he got expelled. Kids who are drawing pictures that involve weapons, and they get sent to the office. Well, if you could pull my art projects from elementary school all the way through, and how many of them involve fighting? I used to draw superhero stuff. And guess what happens in superhero stuff? There's fighting. There's people with guns. There's superheroes stopping them. Even writing one of these, I was actually writing a story of a vampire hunter when I was in middle school. And back then it was junior high school. And I got sent to the counselor's office because they just wanted to make sure that, I wasn't on the vampire side and that I really was on the, hunter-hero side. Because, I wrote a very kind of balanced approach where, I was expressing the vampire's perspective and the hunter's perspective, and they were a little bit worried about that. And they were especially concerned, even on the hero side, that the solution was to kill the vampire. Now, think about, vampire hunting. I mean, that's kind of like the whole goal. You have to kill the vampire, right? But they were concerned that the solution to the problem was killing, and what if the vampire is a metaphor for a school bully that's picking on him, and he really is harboring these ideas of killing the school bully. And that was when I was in school. So even more recently, one of my clients had to come get me because the son got picked on. Got picked on and singled out by the teacher. And he stood up and he was furious. He felt singled out, embarrassed in front of everyone, and he was angry, but he didn't want to act out. And he promptly stood up and said, "May I please be excused?" And the teacher stood there looking at him, and he walked outside. Because he knew, if I stay in there, I'm going to yell at somebody. I'm going to do something I know I shouldn't do. And he was outside pacing around, calming himself down, doing a pretty good job. Teacher came out and told him to go to the office. Principal was talking, was very concerned, the vice principal was talking, very concerned. He ended up being suspended and told, you need to go see a pastor or a counselor or a psychologist or somebody. So they came to me. I talked to him, sorted it all out, wrote a letter. This isn't adequate. I told you he needs a psychiatric evaluation. And I said, no, that's not what you told us. We did what you told us to do. And then he was still suspended. Then the police got called. So then I ended up actually going to the school, obviously a local client, physically going to the school and sitting in on meetings. Everyone's very reasonable while I'm sitting there because, I'm there and I'm a lawyer. So I showed up with my lawyer hat on instead of my parent coach hat on. If I said, well, I'm the parenting coach. Well, that probably wouldn't have carried any weight. But I showed up and said, okay, I'm the family's attorney. And I'm just here to make sure all this goes smoothly and everything's okay. And we got it all handled. Everyone was nice, polite, professional. Okay, and all the tensions were down lower. The family's tensions were down low because they knew that they had a buffer between them and the school, and nothing bad was going to happen. They didn't have to get their hackles up and defend their kid to the death. But think about what this was. It was him handling it. Even the teacher, upon reflection, said, yeah, on balance, I have to say, he handled that pretty well. And looking back on it after, everyone calmed down, even the principal said, actually, he did a pretty good job. But that was after everyone's tensions were down, and we could go, all right, now that it's done, now that's over with, now that no one's in combat mode, now let's look back at it, and actually, he did pretty good. I think probably we overreacted a little bit. Maybe a lot. But the realization that in the middle of that emotional situation, some of this gets tough. And then manhood, adulthood, is even more bewildering, and it's packed with minefields, where a single comment can get a man reprimanded. And so in one particular case, a woman had gone out, partying the night before, and she showed up for her reception job still wearing a nightclub dress. So she's in a dress that's low cut, and it's, high up on her legs, and so her legs are showing, and, she's got cleavage showing, and she's at work. And the guy walked in and kind of paused and looked at her, and, his thought in his head is, that's not really appropriate for the receptionist at a law firm. And made a remark like, that's some dress. And then headed off to his office. Within the hour, when the senior partner comes and pulls him out of his office and has a talk with him about sexual harassment. How dare you comment about her appearance? That you look at a woman whose legs are showing and has cleavage showing, and you're gawking at her and you're remarking on her appearance. She is dressed inappropriately for work. She's our receptionist. This is a law firm. We need to be professional. Well, you don't make a remark about what a woman looks like. If you do, we are going to cite you for sexual harassment. And he headed back to his office and is going, are they kidding me? She can show up, dressed like she's dressed for a nightclub, because she was, and somehow that's okay? I can just remark that that's some dress. And I'm in trouble? We have a whole day of clients that are going to be showing up, seeing a woman with cleavage showing, and yeah, she's attractive, but you don't wear skirts up to there, and you don't wear cleavage down to here in a law firm. It's just not done. Or sometimes a single comment can get him kicked out of school, where you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and they don't like it. All of a sudden it's a hate crime. All of a sudden it's all kinds of sexism, all kinds of racism for one comment. And men suffer this much more than women do. Women can make all kinds of comments about men, and that seems to be accepted, but when men make it about women, that's sexist, and he can be booted. Or a man could lose his position. One man knew a woman, her name was Victoria, and he remarked one day, so Victoria, any secrets? And that was as far as he went. He lost his position for that one remark. Even Victoria herself, because she's the one I talked to, said that it just made me a little uncomfortable. I just wanted him to, like, not keep going down that path. I didn't mean for him to get transferred out of the office. So he lost his position in that office. He got transferred to another office where he became the low man on the totem pole for making a maybe tasteless, maybe witty remark playing on the name of Victoria's Secrets with a woman named Victoria. In one remark, one time. And this was from Victoria's mouth. I mean, she said, yeah, he wasn't like this. He was a nice guy. I liked him. You know, just that comment made me a little uncomfortable. I just didn't want him to keep going on that. And that's the world we're raising our sons in. That's the man's world we're raising our boys to have to navigate as adults. And as a mother who's never been a boy, never been a man, trying to raise a son to be ready for that world, that's scary to a lot of women.